Even the basic settings can be a little tricky for photographers just getting their hands on a camera with full manual control. But don't worry, that's what this video is here for. I have almost 5 years of photographic experience under my belt, so consider this your 101 class on your basic camera settings and how to use them. Stick around if you're new, and if you have any questions left unanswered by the end, leave it in the comment. I'll be sure to answer as many as I possibly can, and if I can't answer your question, maybe somebody else can. Either way, let's get to the point, shall we? Section 1. Shutter speed. The value shown on your camera's readout is for what fraction of a second the shutter will be raised for. For example, 1/500th of a second. After this brief moment, the shutter snaps back shut and cuts the sensor off from light. So your shutter speed is literally the speed at which your shutter goes up and comes back down. Now that we know what shutter speed is, technically, let's start going over the fun part, what it does creatively. High shutter speeds, like say 1/500th to 1/4000th, will completely freeze action in its place and won't let a whole lot of light reach your sensor before the shutter closes. This makes it great for stuff like moving cars or sports, but bad in darker environments without compensation from your other two settings. We'll get back to that, don't worry. On the other hand, low shutter speeds, like 1/100th of a second all the way down to 1/25th of a second, let motion blur and flow across your images, making them optimal for low light images of still subjects. That is, unless you're looking to add motion blur or light trails to your images. But that and slower than 1/10th of a second are bridged across in a completely separate video. Use the phrase long exposure in a comment if you want me to make a full video about that. Section 2. Aperture. The value you'll find on your camera's readout is either an F or an F/ followed by the number with a decimal. Usually something like f2.8 or f5.6, but it can go up into numbers like f16, and usually is located next to your shutter speed on the readout. Unlike your shutter speed, however, you're not changing the timing of something in the camera body. You're changing the value of something in your camera lens. Your aperture is actually the diameter of the opening created by your lens blades, with the number for this opening called the f-stop. The larger your f-stop value, the smaller your aperture, and vice versa. Each time you increase your f-stop, you decrease the amount of light allowed in to your sensor by half, and you increase your depth of field. This happens because as the opening gets smaller, less stray light is allowed to hit your sensor, and as more stray light is filtered out, the image becomes more coherent or in focus. With that in mind, we can now start to discuss how Aperture can create different looks for our photos. Most obviously, you can darken your image by raising your f-stop, which is good for counteracting a slow shutter speed when you're outside. Alternatively, you can combine a low shutter speed and a high f-stop to take bright photos with a deep depth of field. I'll provide some examples later, so stay tuned if you can't quite visualize what I'm talking about just yet. Section 3. ISO. This is your obligatory reminder to subscribe to the channel. I'm still small and trying to grow, so any support is welcomed. Anyway, the ISO value on your camera is just a normal number, usually starting at or around 100 and going up from there. My personal camera starts at 100 ISO and goes up to 40,000 ISO. This would be the part where I start explaining what the ISO values really mean and do, but when it comes to digital photography, it doesn't really matter all that much. The numbers are arbitrarily picked by the camera manufacturers, and they're just based on what made a good image in testing. But TLDR for the Wikipedia page. ISO is a standardized system for measuring film sensitivity that got translated over to digital sensors to fulfill a similar purpose. For the sake of this video, just know that it can artificially brighten your image in camera, like nudging the exposure slider in Lightroom, but for your JPEGs too. ISO is really hard to explain in an isolated context like this, so let's just move on. Section 4. How it all works together. This part could pretty much be its whole own video, but would leave a lot to be desired if I did that. It'd have to be like a 4-part mini-series or something. No, that's stupid. Anyway, let's stop hypothesizing about things that just wouldn't work and get into how shutter speed, aperture, and ISO all work together. The reason why you're probably here. So all three of our settings influence how the sensor receives light in some way or another. Shutter speeds by how long the light has to reach the sensor, aperture by the space the light has to get through to reach the sensor, and ISO by simply being the sensor, and how sensitive it is to light. Since a photograph is just light collected in given form, These factors all play off each other to determine your final image. The first setting you should change is the one that you deem creatively necessary. There's no set order, just pick what matters to you and change that setting first. For example, if you want motion blur by having a slow shutter speed, change that first, then raise your f-stop and lower your ISO to compensate, as seen in this image that I took at a drift event. If I hadn't counterbalanced the low shutter speed with the high f-stop and low ISO, the image would have been completely overexposed, because the light would have had too long to reach the sensor and nothing would have been stopping it. Similarly, if you want a thin depth of field, lower your f-stop, raise your shutter speed to compensate. On the other side of that coin, if you want a really deep depth of field, for like a landscape or something, lower your shutter speed to take in more light. ISO, however, is a very strange case. It doesn't really make any creative changes of its own, it just adds brightness. So it doesn't need to be your creative crux. Just change it when you need to. It's like a universal balancer. Turn it down when you're about to overexpose. Turn it up when you're about to underexpose. You'll probably pull a decent image out of it. Just be careful when you're raising your ISO. If you start asking too much out of it, then you'll end up with a noisy, grainy image. Like if I put the lens cap on right now, cranked my ISO all the way, you wouldn't see the inside of the lens cap. You just see a whole lot of grain and noise. I don't really feel smart enough to explain how or what noise really is in photographic terms. So I'll tell you this. Keep your ISO as low as you can without compromising your other two settings. Don't be afraid to raise it, just be careful. And don't leave it at 100 all the time. Section 5, the end of the video. Would you look at that? Seems like I've done most of what I can do to help you learn your basic camera settings without just grabbing you through the screen, pulling you over here, and teaching you hands-on. That'd be a little weird, so instead I'll just thank you for sticking around this long. Feel free to leave any questions you may still have in the comments below. I'll be responding to as many comments as I can, again, just, making sure you know that. Please subscribe while you're scrolling down beneath the video, because, I want this channel to grow. I have fun doing it. I have fun teaching you. Keep me on your homepage. Homepage? What? Keep me on your homepage by subscribing. I have more educational stuff on the way. I have some fun stuff on the way. Just, say subscribe, keep watching. But I'll stop taking up your time. I've been Harrison. You've been you. I hope to see you again next time. And remember, practice makes progress.